Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Tai Chi Web Show. I'm Dane Dormio. I'm here with my good buddy, Andrew Brown, and we have some very special guests this evening with a very unique Tai Chi background that I'm really interested to learn more about. Bob Klein is a 20-year student of Grandmaster William Chen, and he's been teaching Tai Chi himself since 1975. He's written 3 books and has at least one more on the way, including a novel. And he's also produced over 70 Tai Chi instructional DVDs. And in addition to that, he has a 20-year career as a zoologist in his background, and so I'm particularly interested to learn about the Zookinesis form of qigong that he's developed. And Bob and Jean together, Jean has been studying Tai Chi since 1988, and she's also a physical therapist and Pilates instructor, and together they run the Long Island School of Tai-Chi-Chuan. So I'm really looking forward to hearing a little bit more about your journey and your background, guys. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure to have you.
Should I just begin? Do you have a question?
I'd like to hear your origin story. What got you started on the path that led to all this Tai Chi, martial arts, animals, etc.?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of aspects to it. First is I was involved in zoology at a young age, and I started an animal importing company to bring animals in from around the world to establish breeding colonies of rare animals in case they became extinct in the wild. And I was the one cleaning and feeding and taking care of them, as well as importing and everything else. So I had a hands-on knowledge and experience of working with many species. A lot of them are very large and powerful, and you can't overpower them. You have to just learn to connect with them. So when I was looking for a martial art to get involved in, and somebody told me about Tai Chi that was related to animal movements, and I called up William Chen and said, "Is there anybody on Long Island who teaches closer to me?" He recommended Herb Gray, who was a student of his, studied with him for a couple of years, and then went to William Chen, where I studied for a long time. But also I have scoliosis. So I had constant pain in my back. I have a 45-degree bend. And I had a very limited ability to move. So the doctor suggested surgery, a back brace, and none of that seemed interesting to me. So I got involved in Tai Chi and the Qigong. And within 6 months, I had no problems after that. Kind of no pain, no limitations of movement. It was crazy. So I devoted my life to that. And I spent 20 years working in the field of zoology. I would bring animals into William Chen to show him how different animals move. And each time I would go to class, depending on the animal I worked with that day, that's how I would do my Tai Chi. That's the quality I would bring to the Tai Chi, so including the fighting. So one day I would be fighting a cat, like a cat. We had a lot of wild cats. Others like a snake or like one of the other animals we worked with. So it was kind of hard for the students to predict what I was going to be doing because I didn't know what I would be doing myself. It just came from what the animals were doing. So when I was learning Qigong, a system called animal exercises, which is different than animal frolics. It's a different system. But I started adding in my experience from the animals themselves, adding exercises into it, and adding the dynamics of the movements into it. So at a certain point, I felt I should call it something else because it wasn't exactly what I had learned. and I call it Zookinesis, which means animal exercises. Same name, but more scientific sounding. I thought it might be, people might think it's more legitimate that way at that time. That's how it felt.
Wear a lab coat.
What's that?
You should wear a lab coat.
Yeah, we're allowed.
Look like a scientist.
So that's where. But also working with animals, I realized that each animal had a different pattern of consciousness, different pattern of attention. It could do things with its attention that another animal couldn't, and of course I couldn't, because my consciousness wasn't as skilled and powerful as their consciousness. And I came to realize that animal consciousness is a lot more powerful than ours. We tend to think that we're powerful. We're only powerful in the way that we use, that we've developed technology. But as far as our consciousness is concerned, we're not so powerful. And I realized that Tai Chi is a method of strengthening your consciousness. And I got involved in the study of consciousness itself through healing systems of other cultures, through reading about, reading ancient texts. And I started to understand that the basis of Tai Chi was the development of the body's consciousness, because the mind's consciousness, the thinking consciousness in our culture has overtaken the body consciousness. We've developed a master-slave relationship where the thinking mind is the master and the body consciousness is the slave. And that's not good for our health. So what I teach is strengthening the body consciousness so it comes into a more harmonious relationship with the thinking mind. And that's the basis of how I teach people.
All right. So mind-body unity is a big part of your instruction.
Right.
All right. Cool.
And equality, mind-body equality.
Mind-body equality. Yeah, one is not above the other. That's for sure. So you said you've worked with animals for all this time. What kind of movements have you developed that we've never seen before, or that are not in traditional movements at all?
Well, there are about 350 movements, or sets of movements. And what I do is I start people out with very, very simple movements that emphasize distinguishing between internal movement and external movement. I think that's a very important place to start. So, for example, I'll have them, I'm sitting, let's say I do it standing up, but I actually teach seniors in nursing homes the same exercises from the seated position. But when you're standing, I'll stand back here. When you're standing, just as a simple idea, you bring your shoulders from side to side, keeping the weight distribution even on the legs. And as you're doing that, or if you're moving around in a circle like this, all of the muscles of the whole central part of the body have to constantly readjust as you're moving to keep you in balance if you don't shift your weight from side to side. So it teaches them that as much as you're moving your shoulders in different ways, your top of the body, the central core of the body has to be in tremendous dynamic movement internally, even though it's not moving externally. And I think one of the mistakes people make in modern times, and that's one thing I'd like to get into, modern Tai Chi as compared to traditional Tai Chi. That's a pet peeve of mine. The modern Tai Chi, people say, well, the classics say whole body movement. And what does that mean to them? It means that from the bottom of the pelvis to the top of the head, the body is frozen. There's no movement within the body, no movement of the joints and muscles in relationship to each other. Right? So when we're moving in qigong, every joint in the body, and in the form too, every joint in the hips to legs, every joint and muscle is in movement in relationship to each other, without first moving in the form or in the qigong set. Then you release that pattern of movement from the center of the body and all the joints moving. You release that through the body that creates waves. So the actual movements of the body are a release. They're not a generation. The generation is internal, where there's very, very little movement externally. And then you're constantly releasing those patterns like waves. And let me come back here because it's hard to...
Move the chair to the side.
Oh, okay. It's hard to know what I'm saying just from words. So maybe
Yeah.
you can see it. Yeah. So if I'm moving in preparation, what I'm going to do is that's the movement, right? And then I release. That's the release. This is the movement. This is the release, right? This is the movement. This is the release. And down. I'm doing wood off left, let's say. This is the movement. This is the release, right? So the actual movements of the form, the qigong, are releasing the dynamics that are going on inside of the body. Another thing is that when you're stepping, people freeze their hips, so they step like this. Let's say they're doing single whip and they're stepping. They step like this, or they step like this, where the leg does this whole thing like that, because their hips are frozen. They're afraid to be unbalanced. So what we teach is that the balance comes from the continuation of the flow of the circles within the body. The freezing is what makes you unbalanced. So as I come in, the hips. Oh, so there's no, the leg doesn't have to do anything. I'll do it from here. The leg doesn't have to do anything. It just flows out because the hips are active in movement. So let me imitate. Let me imitate what I see some people do. For single whip, let's say, they do this. You know,
So it's very stiff, and the spine, they're misinterpreting, and when whole body movement again, a lot of people think that means the whole body is stiff and straight, and there's no dynamic to it. And what Bob does is there's a dynamic to the spine, so that it aligns, but there's a flow through it, and it's the letting go of that tension that allows the flow, which makes the form very beautiful.
Yeah, that's the fluidity that makes Tai Chi beautiful. It's when people are blocky and it's more like a square instead of a circle that it loses that charm.
And the qigong, this is another thing.
And same, yes, Tai Chi
The qigong I talk about a lot as far as moving your energy through the macrocosmic and microcosmic orbits. We have in our culture a battle between the mind and the body, where the mind is the slave owner, is the master, and is telling the slave what to do, whipping that slave, telling them what to do. The body knows what to do. It knows how to move the energy properly. You just leave it the hell alone. And what we're trying to do with the form and the qigong, and especially the push hands and the fighting, is to show people what's going on inside of them. It's to show people this relationship between the mind and the body, and to show how your habits freeze the flow of energy and warp the flow of energy. It's you doing that. So what are you doing? You're now you're freezing the energy in the body, and then telling the body, no, it shouldn't be frozen. It should move this way. Just don't freeze it in the first place. So what we do is teach people to see inside of themselves, to develop a sense of understanding, of being able to perceive consciousness itself, to be able to perceive the flow of energy itself, to be able to see how their thinking mind and their habits fight those things. And then realize, well, why am I doing that? It doesn't make any sense. And at a certain point, you just get so bored with doing that nonsense of ordering the body around and freezing the energy flow, that you just stop doing it. And then the body knows what to do. You don't have to tell it what to do. So I think that the ordering of the energy flowing in these different cycles does nothing more than to reinforce the master-slave relationship. And I don't think it leads anywhere good. And I know that's not the common approach to qigong. The approach is that other way, but I don't like it, I have to say.
Well, naturalness is built into everything going back to the Tao Te Ching, it's all about flowing and allowing and
let nature do what it does.
So
Let
yeah,
the river run.
allowing nature to do what it does exactly. I'm curious about something you said earlier about animals have a stronger consciousness than humans, and I wonder if this particular thing I'm thinking of is an example. Like for example, dogs, if they go outside and it's snowing, it's cold and it's snowing, it's like they don't even realize it's cold. They just go out and they sniff around and go, oh, what's this white stuff? And they play. It's like they can't even, and they're totally naked, of course. And they go run and play in the snow. It's like they can't even tell that it's cold. Whereas a human acclimated to clothing and shelter and air conditioning and climate control would, go outside. A typical human would, just go outside and be freezing and want to get inside as quickly as possible. Of course, there are exceptions like Wim Hof, who like to go in the cold for fun, but most humans are kind of weak compared to your average dog in that regard when it comes to just something like going out in the cold. Is that an example of what you meant about animals having a stronger consciousness than humans?
There's the saying, the Taoist saying, that the inside and the outside reflect each other. Now, from a scientific point of view, what the equivalent would be is that multicellular animals like us evolved from single-celled animals that gathered together in colonies. And at a certain point, the colony, the habitat, became so interdependent, each kind of cell became so interdependent, that certain cells lost some abilities but developed other abilities. And they formed together into a unit, a habitat, so interdependent that it became an actual being in itself, which is what we are. But still, every cell in the body, every organ in the body, has to know what's going on the outside in order to adapt its functioning to the conditions that change, like snow or what's cold or hot. They also have to change their conditions, their activity, according to what the other cells and organs are doing. So there's a communication mechanism between each cell, each organ, and the rest of the cells and organs and the outside world that needs to be maintained in order for us to be healthy. And we do tend to cut that off. We tend to not only cut it off with environmental control in the house, but with the qigong, there's a tendency to feel that the qi should only flow within the body and not flow outside of the body, not connect with the outside. What we're teaching is that the first step in qigong is to balance the flow of energy internally with the flow of energy externally, so that the cells and the organs can adjust to what's going on around you. Now, that's especially important in push hands, where you got to know the person involved and you got to know what's going on inside of them. You got to know the state of their consciousness. Is there attention in every single muscle and joint in the body? Is there some tiny part of the body where their attention is locked out? And well, that's the part you push. You don't push the whole person. You only push the part where the consciousness is dead. So we have kind of deadened consciousness because we close it up inside of ourselves and don't connect it to the outside. And that qi, which is both a sense and an energy flow, doesn't allow the body to adapt and from day to day and from season to season. And so this is the first thing I would say is in qigong, besides becoming coordinated, is allowing the energy inside of your body to connect with the energy outside of your body. And then it will balance pretty much by itself. Then you can go into all the little clever qigong stuff that people do. But without being balanced, you shouldn't be going any further.
Yeah, you have to first feel what's going on inside of you, feel the qi, before you start manipulating it. And a lot of times people just start with, let me learn how to manipulate this qi, but they're not even aware of the qi. So first you have to feel what's there, feel how it's working, feel where the blockages are. Then you can work with it and start to clear blockages and use it to your advantage. And like Bob was saying, being able to connect with the environment around you. I hear a lot of people when they're talking about qigong, they try to keep it in. They're always trying to generate and keep it in, and then they worry. They feel it's leaking out here, or trying to pull it back in. And it should be just an evenness, a connection with themselves, with the environment. It's the same thing. It's not this and that. It's not me and that outside. It's we're all connected. And when you can connect on that level, then you can connect even further. You just keep connecting.
I think we can show visually what the difference is with that. Okay, we push like this. Okay. So this is
I took my shoes
this is people approaching each other for push-ins. Okay, so the first way. Let's see. Okay, I think we're in that.
You're in the frame. Yeah.
Huh?
You're in frame. We see.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
So the first way is the modern way, the competition push-in.
It's like you're very aggressive, and it's me fighting you, and there's all this tension.
This looks like the competition.
Yes, and we're just interested in knocking the other person off balance.
The second way is connected. Right? See, that's a very big difference. Now we can move and flow and
look for attention. Look for where the person is off balance, not just grounded on with their feet, but off balance mentally. Like there.
Yeah. So the purpose of push hands is to connect. It's in a sense, of course, you're trying to push the other person off balance, but you're trying to do that by connect. And in the modern push hands, it's maximum tension, maximum resistance.
It shouldn't be, but it seems like that's what it looks like when you look at it.
And when you push hands with somebody, that's what it's like.
It's about winning, and the feeling of I want to win, I want to be better. So they were already making this tension with their thought. And if you think more, if you let go of the thinking and you just say, how can I connect? Let me go back to my center, connect with my own center, connect with the other person's center, and then you move from there. It's the letting go. It's not holding on to tension. Whenever you start to feel tension, I gotta let go of that, because the more tense I am, the more I'm giving him something to push.
And so the traditional is no resistance.
Yeah.
Not resisting, not tightening up. William Chen says, did I push you? In other words, that if you push someone, it should be as much of a surprise to you as them, because you're not trying to do it. It's just part of the flow of what's going on. In the modern push hands, it's I pushed you. That's what they want to say, I pushed you. But William Chen says, did I push you? Because you don't even know you pushed them. So it's just flowing with the different patterns that they're generating and moving within their body, they're moving within your body. So it's one field of energy and movement. It's not two people. What you're trying to do is create one dynamic taking place, and that you're both part of that dynamic. Like a relationship, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I always tell people you're taking two people and turning them into one person.
Right.
Because if you can become one person, then you can control both sides. Because I can control both my hands because I'm one person.
But a lot of people can't. It takes about 2 years for somebody to be able to coordinate the left side and the right side of the bodies and push hands. People's attention is like an inchworm. They anchor and move, anchor and move. The attention doesn't flow. So if your attention moves in a stick-like way, then the body moves the same way. So it takes a number of years to get the attention itself, the whole body attention, to be released and to flow. because people say, well, if I release my attention, which is called yin attention, if I release the attention, then it's just going to go wherever it wants to go, and I have no control. Yang attention is where you grab it. So yang attention is like grabbing a bird. You have it, you know where it is, but you can't see it. It's in your fist. Even if you open up one little finger or two little fingers, all you're going to see is a bird frozen like this. Yin attention is where you release the bird. You can see it, you see how it moves, how it behaves, but you can't control where it goes. And so William Chen explained that he was hard to understand, like when he explains things. So it took a number of years to just learn how he explained things. But he said it's like throwing a bowling ball down the alley, and it's going to go into the gutter. You take a feather and you touch it on one side, and it goes back and gives you the strike. Well, yang attention should be like the feather. Yin attention should be like the bowling ball. We have it reversed in our culture. Our attention is like two hands coming out of your eyes and grabbing things. We like to own things and hold them. And yin attention is where you're part of the environment. So yes, you want to have a little yang attention, so you have some say as to where your attention goes, and you can pay attention to things. Otherwise, you'll be like an airhead. But you want what's called the golden elixir. The golden elixir means the proportion of yin attention and yang attention at any one moment. What's appropriate for that moment? And it's a mixture that you're constantly remixing for each moment. And that's the teaching of alchemy. It's the basis of the teaching of alchemy. But I think that's been removed from Tai Chi teaching by the Chinese government. They don't allow that to be taught. Because they don't want people having power over their own lives. That's what gives you the power over your own life, to understand the dynamics taking place inside of you. So we don't really have that anymore. So I feel that traditional Tai Chi is kind of dying out, and it's just becoming memorizing movements.
No, hey, I don't disagree. I've seen a lot of Tai Chi since competition has become a very spurring point in Tai Chi, especially in China. The wushu champions, they can do amazing stuff, but I feel like I've met some of these people as they're adults, after they've graduated on from competition, and they don't have any special appreciation for Tai Chi over wushu or basic kung fu. They just kind of like, oh, I know how to do the moves. I have strong legs and I'm flexible, and so I can do Tai Chi.
They're graceful. They're all graceful.
Yeah, of course, they're amazingly graceful.
So what do you
incorporate so much more than basic movements? Yeah. It's all about understanding the behavior patterns inside of you and understanding the behavior patterns of somebody else. And through that understanding, being able to relate to other people in a more effective way, where it's not just that you're reactive to other people. It's seeing behind the curtain what's going on and understanding.
Yeah, I see the ultimate goal is to internalize the movement by forgetting the exact movement. Don't try to mimic the teacher. Don't try to mimic a video. Just feel the movement for yourself, and you'll find your way. Because you've probably noticed this, every single master is different than his teacher. And every single student of his is different than that guy. So everyone has to learn for themselves anyway. You just have to feel your way through it.
I always say that an instructor is somebody who's learned Tai Chi well and has followed a certain path and brings the students along that path. The teacher is somebody who understands where they're going and all of the different paths that you can use to get to that same place. So the teacher can work with the student who's over here and the student who's over here and bring them to the same place, even though they're following different paths.
That's definitely true.
What do you feel like humans can learn from animals, and how, in terms of body regulation, body-mind practice? What can humans learn?
What can we learn from animals as far as our consciousness and body control?
Yeah.
Okay, let me give you an example. I used to have lots of reptiles because that was my specialty. I was the guy who brought in the leopard gecko into the country and got people to breed them. And all the leopard geckos you see around now are the result of the ones I brought in.
I wondered about that because leopard geckos sure are adorable, but is it was I wonder what was the sort of ecological reasoning behind that?
Okay. At that time, a lot of the pet industry was shipping in exotic animals. So there were, and the wild places were being wiped out. This is in the 60s and 70s. And so many people interested in different species wanted to develop breeding programs, two breeding programs, one for pet animals, exotic pet animals, so they could be bred in captivity and sold to pet stores and not shipped in from the wild. And the others were for rare animals to provide to zoos and other zoological organizations to perpetuate the species. So I did that. I provided those animals to both places. But the reason for the leopard gecko specifically was that I think they're such adorable and they're friendly and easy to take care of. They have such a positive, uplifting attitude. There are leopard gecko clubs and everybody loves the leopard geckos. I considered them an ambassador to nature, an ambassador from nature, to try to emotionally express to people the importance of preserving nature. And I used to put on programs called the Animal Man program, where I brought animals to schools and explained the importance of protecting the animals, of how they live in the wild. I did that to over 1.5 million students over 20 years. And I just try to find all kinds of ways to promote that, to promote the need to protect the environment. So this is one of those projects. Now, as far as what do we learn from them, I give you an example of a snake catching a mouse, although I give my snakes dead mice now. But when a snake is concentrating on a mouse, he'll stay there for 2 or 3 hours concentrating on a mouse until he's ready to strike and get it. And the mouse is also frozen, and they have this tug of war with their consciousness. I used to take a snake called the Cook's tree boa, which gets to be about 7 feet thin, but 7 feet is a tree boa that eats birds. And it has to strike the birds very quickly because they'll fly away. It lives in the trees. So I would have the students take a stick with a tree boa around it and concentrate on it. They were wearing goggles. And if their attention wavered for even a second, the snake struck at them and they'd have to duck. But it taught them how to keep their concentration absolutely solid because they didn't want to get the snake striking at them. So I used the animals for that. Also, cool. When I would clean, for some reason I had a big Burmese python. And Burmese pythons are usually very gentle. This one was mean for some reason. And so I didn't want to take it out of the cage to clean it. I cleaned it while it was in its cage. And it kept striking at me, striking at my face. So I would just duck. I just cleaned and I ducked. And it kind of became a game between us. He kept striking, I kept ducking. And I learned a lot about fighting from that snake. but yeah, it's all sorts of ways that I learned about attention and the body response, quick response from the animals. And also another thing I should mention is that when you hold a snake, its attention is throughout the body. And if you make an adjustment, let's say even in your hips as you're holding it, you can feel every vertebra, every muscle throughout the body changing and rolling and adjusting to what you did. It knows everything that's going on inside of your body. Every last muscle, every last...
I was going to say, which is the goal of push hands, to feel and to know that kind of awareness. Handling the snakes, that actually helped me with push hands.
I used to hand people an 8-foot boa in class. I work with this group here, and then somebody over here would be holding the snake for a while, and we'd switch. So we had it in class one day, and I gave a woman a snake to hold. I said, all right, it's your turn to hold the snake. Then I went and worked with other people. Then I came back and I said, okay, it's now somebody else's turn. She said, I had a deathly fear of snakes. I didn't know you were going to hand the snake to me. And you just handed me the snake. I'm deathly afraid of them. And then you just walked away. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think in those terms. I think everybody would like to."
We get used to them.
Yeah. And I said, "Oh, I'll take it from you." She's, "No, I want to keep holding it. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful animal. I love it now." So
That's great.
So it's probably beat your heart out.
yeah, you can just feel the animals and the relationship an animal can have with you through the body, not just intellectually, they're not intellectual, but through the body, that teaches you Tai Chi.
Now I have a little question that's kind of maybe a little weird, but so you've done qigong for a long time. You've probably done energy exchange with trees, I imagine, at this point.
Yeah, sure.
Have you done energy exchange with animals? Have you tried this at all? Yeah.
You can't
Okay.
deal with them if you don't do that because they don't. What other exchange could you have?
Yeah.
They don't-
Okay.
you can't- I mean, you could.
My
talk
teacher
to them.
warned me about doing this. He said that you could kill animals if you do too much energy exchange with smaller animals.
That
So
I don't think most people have that kind of energy. And if an animal is faced with that kind of energy, it'll just go away. They're not going to stick around.
You're not holding it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we call it interpenetration or soaring. That's when your whole energy system goes into the animal or into another person, and its energy system goes into you, right? And you're within each other. It's also called journeying, and other cultures call it journeying. What you're doing is you're exchanging your energy systems and living within each other, which is, again, push hands. And in that is your communication. Now, if you don't want, what happens with a lot of people is that you haven't become aware of yourself. Your energy, your consciousness hasn't gone into yourself, into your own body. You're engaged in this battle. So you have large areas of yourself that are blocked off, and you can't even go in there. Now you're faced with an animal that can get in there easier than you can. When a snake is staring at you, it's in you. And that's what frightens a lot of people. It's not so much that you're afraid of being bitten. That's what they say. It's that the energy of the animal has penetrated places where even you can't go inside of your own self. And so when you experience that, and you say to yourself, "Wow, maybe I should know what the snake knows, whatever the animal is. I should be able to be there if the snake can be there." So that's what the animals teach you, is that all the places within you that you're blocked from your own awareness, all the subconscious places. And push hands teaches you that, being with another person, but competition push hands doesn't teach you that. And modern Tai Chi forms don't teach you that. It's for a whole other purpose. It's a whole other discipline. It's called by the same name. It's called Tai Chi. It's called push hands, but it's a whole different. The real Tai Chi is the same as the working animals.
This interpenetration phenomena you're talking about, I wonder if this is related to the supposed abilities of indigenous or like our ancestors, the shamans would do things like go into trance and see where the buffalo are, and
that's called journey. I mentioned journey. Is that you're when with Native Americans, they say you're born with one spirit, one animal spirit, and as you grow and learn, you acquire other animal spirits inside of you. Well, these animal spirits are the patterns of the skills that different animals have of using their consciousness in different modes, in different ways. And what you're learning is different modes of using your consciousness, which includes journeying out to see where the buffalo are. I'll tell you something very interesting, though. In Christianity, certain types of Christianity, there's the same thing. I'm not Christian myself, but
the snake handling?
Huh?
Or the snake handling? Is that?
Oh no, I'm not talking about that.
On the gospel.
But in the 325, when Emperor Constantine had the conference of what would constitute Christianity.
Mhm.
There were two camps. One was the Gnostic camp, and one was the uh, apostolic camp. And the Gnostic camp suggested that the very yin yang kind of concept that God was like a bridal chamber, right? Jesus was like yang, it was creativity, Brahma is all in Hinduism, creating, the creative force. And the Holy Spirit was the creative force in the sense of fixing things into patterns. And the Holy Spirit was changing those patterns, dissolving those patterns, like Shiva in Hinduism. So you have the creator and the dissolver. They call it Shiva is the destroyer, but I don't like to use that word. And creator and dissolver, yang and yin. So and then the bridal chamber was Tao, was the space within which consciousness lives. Right? So they were stating the idea of consciousness. But what the apostolic said was no, there's only one kind of consciousness, and that's thinking. Christ represented the logos, which is the thinking ability. The Holy Spirit is creativity, but thinking is creativity, and God is thinking. So everything is thinking. The only thing there is, the only thing consciousness is thinking. There is no other consciousness besides thinking. So from that time on, and of course the apostolics won, it became Roman Christianity, because the emperor said, you either, we want it to be the Roman way, not the other way. So if you want us to make Christianity legal, you better do it this way. This is my understanding of that anyway. So they had their own, Christianity had its own point, 325 AD, where they broke from the ancient ways, the shamanistic ways, but before that they were shamanistic, very much so. And they became militaristic after.
Yeah, man. Oh, that's the benefit of religion.
So I talk about all this in my new book coming up.
Oh yeah.
I go far afield from movements of magic and movements of power. Those are like the preparation for the next book. The next
So what
book
is
25 years to write, and now now I'm doing the editing, and I'm
good.
trying to go really far beyond what I did.
Well,
so
congratulations on your
subject
fourth
matter?
book. That's wonderful.
What's the subject or topic of this book that you're
Well, it's
giving
called
a review?
Heal Yourself in the World with Tai Chi. And it's about what is Tai Chi? What is traditional Tai Chi? Why do you teach things the way you teach things? Getting down to the nitty-gritty of every tiny little excruciating detail of how things are taught and what the mechanics are, what the philosophy is. Why do you teach it, and where does it fit into the whole overall philosophy of Taoism? And how does it improve your life? How does it make your life more powerful? How does it relate to our modern everyday world to be functional in our modern world? So that's like I feel is the end. That's as far as I can go with my book writing, and that's the last book I'm going to write.
All right, I like that. That's good.
So on that note, in terms of your writings and teachings, what is a good way for people to connect with you if they want to learn from you or learn more about you?
And my website is movementsofmagic.com. It's the same name as the book here. I don't know if you can see it, but it says Movements of Magic.
The Movements of Magic. Okay, got it.
Yeah, the second one is Movements of Power. I'll do a little bit of ad here. So movements, plural, movementsofmagic.com. It has everything in there, all the DVDs, the classes, what I teach. And I do teach by Zoom over the internet. I teach private classes on Zoom, so you can sign up for that. Right now we don't have group classes because of the virus. But that's the best way. Just go to that movementsofmagic.com and everything is in there.
Yeah, and if you'll put that that link in the comments on this video on Facebook after we're done. That'll be a convenient way for people to access them. So something that comes to mind about animals is, of course, pets, which something, a common, a lot of people have pets, the most common ones being cats and dogs, obviously, of course. And what does all this talk about communing, exchanging energy with animals, and learning from animals about how to navigate consciousness and mind-body interaction and this sort of thing? What does this have to do with people's relationships with their pets? And how could somebody, maybe if somebody who has a pet, who has had pets for a while, how could they maybe get a deeper level of insight and value from that relationship?
Okay. Let me explain that first by doing a movement. They always like to have visuals because sometimes people just talk a lot. I tend to talk a lot. But with the visuals, it might be better. So when you're doing a movement, let's say I'll just do withdraw and push. You can do withdraw and push two ways. You can do it, let's say, flat, roll back and press. So withdraw and push, you can do it like this. Let me think for a second. Like that. Or you can do it like this. And going into single whip. So what I'm doing here is I'm spending a lot of time releasing the energy. Okay? I come back, I release the energy down through the root. Release the energy up. And then back down. So what I'm doing is at the top of the movement, when I'm breathing in, we breathe in at the expansion of the movement. I release the energy. At the bottom, as I'm sinking down, breathing out, I release the energy. And I might spend 2 seconds just with the release. Sorry about the check. But if people do this, there's no release. It's just kind of from around, what I call clunking around, or you're not really doing Tai Chi. So the release of energy, and then receiving having that empty space, that point at which you're suspended, and energy can flow back in. The point at which you're suspended after you release down, energy can flow back up. You want to spend time there. So with the animals, how you're dealing with the animals is that animals do that. They're releasing. They're releasing consciousness, releasing energy. And if they meet a person who doesn't do that or doesn't know about it, it's not capable of it, it's strange to them. That's what I found out. That when an animal meets a person who's not able to release and interact with the space around them, with their energy and with their consciousness, they don't know what to make of it or how to deal with it. So the best thing to do in working with animals is to learn how, in the form, learn how to release in the form. And then when you're with an animal, just practice releasing into it. And you'll see all of a sudden the animal's eyes will light up. They'll say, oh, okay, this person's not dead. They're alive. There's an expression, when the consciousness is dead, the person is dead. That means that it's just in the thinking mind. It's just up in the head. So the form is led with the head. Wherever the head goes, the body follows. But it shouldn't be that way. It's where the center goes, is where the body. Yeah, the head is the last thing to go. So you want to release energy to the animal as an offering. You have to make it an offering. And you have to receive the energy from the animal to be polite, to accept its offering. And the exchanges between animals, the communication, is giving each other offerings of energy. That's the way you have to look at it. It's not just you being here and them being there. And again, push hands is the same. Everything's the same. Qigong is the same.
Sure, everything is the same. Okay.
I've always felt like cats have really great push hands, just innately, instinctively, their sense of balance and the way that uh, they they understand positioning so perfectly. So they'll get just close enough so that you can't quite pick them up, and they know based on where your center of balance is that you can reach them and touch them, but you're not going to be able to lift them. And if you do, then they just move their center of mass out of the way, and there's nothing to grab onto. And also like chickens uh, are one type of animal in particular. Depending on how they're domesticated and how trusting you are of people, but whatever uh, they're at any level, they're very, very sensitive to intent. So if chickens are used to running around a barnyard or whatever, they'll be all around the feet of the humans and all, but if just like you take a look at one of them out of the corner of your eye, almost it's like they sense it and they immediately keep their distance. That's just another example that I've come across of the physical and energetic sensitivity of animals. In regards to what you're saying earlier about it's almost like they know us, they sense us more than we sense ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a Tai Chi student. When at the beginning, you're walking over to them constantly, readjusting their posture and correcting the things they're doing wrong. But at a certain point, all you have to do is start walking over to them, and all of a sudden they know how to go into the right position. Yeah. And then at a certain point, all you got to do is turn your head and look at them, and then and then the next point is all you got to do is turn your eyes towards them. And they immediately know how to correct themselves. And then the final stage is all you have to do is think about correcting them, and they correct themselves. So that's how you can tell what stage the student is at, how much effort you have to put into correcting them. The chickens, yeah, they respond very quickly like chickens. The students are like chickens.
So by the Chinese zodiac, I am a rat, wood rat actually. But and I was thinking maybe I should have a rat as a pet.
I used to have rats.
Doing that kind of stuff.
I can attest to rats being good pets. As a kid, I had rats. They were fun.
Yeah, I had rats when I was a kid. But now I'm really interested in getting a snake, but I think that I'm naturally opposed to snakes because I'm a rat.
No, nobody. The snakes aren't
They don't care about your zodiac. They don't.
There's different kinds of attention too with different kinds of snakes. So
yeah, every snake is completely.
Yes, the spilotes.
The spilotes is
the
best.
snake.
The best snake to have, but they're not a snake that an average person can handle. But the spilotes is the master snake as far as I'm concerned. There's one snake from India, and I forget its name, that's similar. And the Crebo of South America is also very. There's certain snakes that are just so, and of course the anaconda. The anaconda's impossible with the anaconda control. You can hold it, and you think you got it, and you don't have it. It's
not just the size; it's the awareness.
It's not the size. It could be a 3-footer.
Yeah.
And the way they use their bodies, they connect inside of you. You have the illusion that you're in control of the snake. Not that they're mean and they're going to attack you, but if they want to go somewhere, they just go somewhere. Whereas a Burmese or Indian python,
they just kind of relax and they fold or meld their body.
So those are just they go along with whatever you want to do.
They sigh.
Flow out of your grip like water.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've obviously worked with lots of constrictors. What about strikers?
I work with every I've even been attacked by one particular 13-footer. And had to use push hands to get out of it. That was my most close brush with death.
Oh, wow. All right.
I made a mistake of just sticking my hand in its cage, and I thought it was food, and it jumped out and twisted around me and got my arms and everything. And
wow.
It just kept squeezing and squeezing until I couldn't breathe. And then I said, maybe I should use push hands. This might be a good
Relax.
time to see if this stuff works. And I
Yeah,
was able
meld with this thing. Oh my gosh, that's cool.
He used its own techniques against it.
That's what I learned from the
You
snakes.
squeeze, I dissolve. Awesome.
I should mention before I do a little another edit. This series, How to Learn and Teach Tai Chi, it's a 7 DVD series, about 14 hours, which goes over all the things we talked about, all these little details, all these little principles of in relationship to the form, to the William Chen's form. Teaches you the form, but also teaches teachers how to explain things, how to explain principles to their students, but really getting into the specific mechanics of the energy flow in the body with every single movement. So that's the last. I think the last series I'm going to produce because it's a tremendous amount of work and I think it has everything in it. So I just want to mention that. Take advantage of being here.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank
Well,
you.
I
Yeah,
could go on another half hour, but Dane, what do you want to have a last question or two?
Yeah, we'll just we certain there's certainly a lot more we can dig into. We'll just say to be continued for now, and so we can keep this bite-sized and digestible. But those your books, your DVD series, your online teaching is all available through your website, which
Yes.
we'll include in the comments. Yes, so. I love of everything you said. One of the things I love the most is using Tai Chi to heal the world, which is our mission. It's part of it's a big part of my mission on this planet, and it's the reason that we do the work that we do, and the reason that we connect with other people who are on the same team. So we're glad that you guys are doing the work that you're doing. I'm glad that we're all on the same team, and and this is a medicine that the world needs right now. So I'm glad that you guys are sharing it, and I really appreciate the unique work that you've done, and I really hope that I hope and trust that the people watching this episode have gotten a lot of value out of it. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
We enjoyed it.
Yeah, so thanks again, guys. Hopefully we'll be seeing you soon. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye. Who's watching? Hello.
Thanks.